Thanks, everyone. Hard acts to follow, aren't they? I mean, some fantastic speakers that we've had already, and I think the theme that very solidly has come through for me already and collectively is the power of the collaboration that you've got. And to be honest, coming from the other side of the country in New South Wales, we don't have the luxury of the network that you have, and it is enormously powerful. And immediately, in discussions with a few people last night and some of the things that I've heard today, the power of that is something you should obviously be very proud of, but also in its life cycle determine what is the next evolution of that and how can you best utilise it. Because it is something that we as an organisation really lack, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go through. So AMP's agribusiness. Agricultural marketing and production systems. It was a good idea at the time, someone's idea, but in reality, it's just AMPs now. It was a concept that was born in 1998 with a group of about 20-odd farming families who said, we want to take greater control of our own destiny. And they were a really interesting group of people. Risk takers, probably having the luxury of a really naturally productive area, but they were concerned about reductions in production research, increasing costs, a desire to improve efficiencies, a number of key things that had pulled them together as an organisation to say, righto, we want to do something different and challenge the convention. And underlying it all is to have some fun, because we get a lot of sad stories out of agriculture, and we've already heard a few examples of those today, and we just don't need them. You know, what we need is agriculture be seen as a place where not only is it fun, but it's challenging, it's rewarding, because one of the biggest issues that I see in our organisation and in many others is our inability to attract new people and the younger generations through into the roles that we'll need to fill into the future. So I think we need to sell a better story. You know, there are some great stories out there, but you know, the whinging, you know, Catherine's story of the whinging farmer, you know, filtering through to a consumer is a pretty frightening one, and I think it's a terrific example. So that's where it all started, 1998, and for about 4 years, nothing happened, which is probably not quite true. The guys went about saying, okay, what do we want to be? And so they looked at cooperative models, they looked at a number of different ways that they could attack building something that was going to be sustainable. And it wasn't until 2002 that they formed what they thought was going to be the future, and that was a merchandise business. And it was the only thing that they could really say that they knew that what they could be successful with. And it was enormously challenging at the time because they obviously had very long-standing relationships with existing suppliers and the like. And so they had to actually say, well, are we going to break these relationships and what does it mean for us longer term? The theory was you generate profit out of something, you can invest it into whatever you like. And whether that be value chain, whether that be better grain marketing, whether that be production research, it gave them some opportunities to be able to do things a little differently. And at the time, I think it sent shockwaves through the local community because there were some really long-standing relationships that were broken by that, and it's taken a long time to mend some of those bridges, there's no doubt. So it wasn't for the faint-hearted, and I take my hat off to these guys from the point of view that they actually said, well, okay, we are actually going to put the interests of us from a sustainability point of view at the forefront. So where are we today? We changed a number of years ago to an unlisted public company. We have a board of 6. We invest pretty heavily in that board. So we've got some external directors who bring some expertise to the table that as farmers we haven't been able to source locally. The business itself is a profitable one, and that's for a number of reasons, and I'll explain a little bit about how that works. But the whole point of it is to have a sustainable and profitable business so that we can do whatever we want with that profit. We've now got 65 shareholders, and they are predominantly farmers, or pretty much all farmers and a few staff. Farmers don't necessarily need to be a shareholder to be a customer of ours, but it was the principle on which some of that was developed. Research is the absolute core of our business. It makes it work. It's the connection with which people truly value. There is nothing more powerful than something coming out of our production research field day or the data that comes out of our work that actually means something on farm. And if we can make it mean something on farm, then it ticks a massive box for us as an organisation, and we're constantly challenged by that. Are we actually making differences on farm? And in the last few years, I think we've been fairly successful in doing that. And there's a number of reasons about how that's developed, and I'll cover that. Dividend. It's a sort of a nasty word, really. No one really wanted, when they first invested, the original investors invested in the company, to be honest, they thought they'd lose their money. They said, this probably won't float. It'll probably fail. So the concept of a business that actually now generates a lot of profit, what are we going to do with it? You know, we can invest a certain amount in research, we can invest a certain amount in value chain, we can buy some facilities, we can make ourselves more sustainable, we can build up the balance sheet to make ourselves more sustainable long term. But dividend was almost like a dirty word for some for a long while. And so we never issued a dividend. And the balance sheet kept growing and growing and growing to such a point where all of a sudden some of our older shareholders said, you know what, we're actually going to exit the farm in the next couple of years, so we might sell those shares. And we'd been very selective about who we brought in as shareholders, so it became very challenging for us to then say, who do we bring in as the next shareholder? So share liquidity became this, or has become one of the major issues of our business. So to solve that problem, it's about saying, well, why would I invest in the business as a shareholder? So dividend has been one of those things that we've worked pretty hard on in the last little while. So we want to have our cake and eat it as well. We want research and we want dividend. How are we going to do it? And that's probably one of the biggest dilemmas that not only you guys as operating grower groups have, it's about all sustainable research models in my mind. A part of one of our biggest challenges in the early days was we needed to have that, I suppose, a reputation that was strong in the industry in general. And to be honest, in the early days, there was plenty of people who wanted to see the business fail. There was a group of farmers who would put themselves together. There was a lot of movements about whether it was a buying group or whether it was a fair dinkum business. So it took us a long time to build that reputation, all the relationships that we needed to hold. In time, we bought storage, grain broking, and we were involved in logistics.